collection possessed by Hashomer HaTzair, which was a Zionist youth organization. And of the roughly 20,000 Jews left alive, 2,500 were registered readers. We know this because the officials of the library kept records. By the summer of 1942, when the Umschlagplatz in Warsaw is already in operation, there were about 5,000 readers a month, and at the end of 42, the Ghetto Theater held a celebration to mark the 100,000th recorded borrowing of a book. Dina Abramovich, a librarian there who survived the war to become director of YIVA in New York, where I met her briefly when I was young, recalled that different people read different things. Relatively well-to-do women read trashy detective stories and romantic novels in Russian that had been published in Riga between the wars. In other words, people who wanted to escape read escapist literature. Teenagers tended to like Jules Verne, basically adventure stories. Slightly older kids read books by Soviet writers, Kak Zakayala Stal, How the Steel Was Tempered, which was all about a socialist paradise. So that too was escapist in its way. People who were prepared to fight, people who were interested in resisting, read Leon Feuchtwanger's The Wars of the Jews. This is a distant relative of mine. And especially, says Dina Abramovich, the remarkable book by Franz Werfel, The 40 Days of Musa Dagh. And she continues, the idea of total annihilation of a racial group, the method of destruction, the helplessness of the victims, and the futility of diplomatic rescue efforts, this presented such an astonishing similarity to our own situation that we read the book with a shudder, receiving it almost as a prophetic vision, revealing for us our inevitable fate. Another librarian at Strachan Street, Hermann Kruk, wrote in Yiddish in a report, while the library was still functioning, that people read Musa Dagh as an analogy to the present situation, along with Tolstoy's War and Peace, and books about the Crusades and the Inquisition. Yeah. Those who felt either resigned to their fate or powerless to change it read escapist literature. Those who were ready to resist read Musa Dagh and were inspired by it. Mordechai Tannenbaum, the commander of the Jewish underground in Białystok, wrote in May 1943 to a friend, Bronka Klebansky, Musa Dagh is now in fashion among us. If you read it, you'll remember it all your life. Heike Grossman, a Hashomer HaTzair activist in the same city, writes of the resistors. They educated themselves. Their challenge and their task compelled them to become strong and human at the same time. That is what the movement and the books they read taught them. During that period, they read Musa Dagh. The book was passed from hand to hand. There was a debate at Białystok in 1943 about whether to flee or to stay and fight. The transcript was carefully buried and dug up after the war, and Herschel Rosenthal had said at the meeting, "Our fate is decided. There is therefore nothing left for us but one path, which is to organize a collective resistance at all costs, to regard the ghetto as our Musa Dagh, and to add a chapter of honor to the history of Jewish Białystok." This was the home of Zamenhof, the inventor of Esperanto, was a great place, Białystok, and to our movement. Yitzchak Zuckerman, whose nom de guerre was Antek, the deputy commander of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, is remembered by Tzvika Dror from his kibbutz. When he wanted to explain to us, he said the Warsaw Ghetto uprising could not be understood without reading Musa Dagh. Lutek, that's Dov Ben Ephraim, the leader of the underground in Częstochowa, went to the forests with the purpose of organizing a Musa Dagh. And we have other testimony from Riga, from all over Europe, and in the land of Israel. The book had been translated into Hebrew in 1934, and it impressed and inspired the Yishuv, the Jewish community, as well. In an article before the war, the writer Dov Kimchi compared Musa Dagh to Matsada. Matsada is a mountain on the Dead Sea where the Jews resisted the Romans after the fall of the Second Temple. When Erwin Rommel's Afrika Corps was advancing across North Africa towards Egypt in 1932, the military leaders of the Yishuv, the Haganah, which later became the Israel Defense Forces, prepared for a last stand on Mount Carmel near Haifa, should the Nazis break through. The commander Yisrael Galili and others referred to the plan alternately as Musa Dagh or Matsada. To this day, recruits to the Israel Defense Forces take a vow on the mountain of Matsada, Shenit Matsada lo tipol. Masada will not fall again. Obviously, Jews have what's called a Masada complex. It's completely unjustifiable, yes? Werfel's novel continued to inspire Israelis after the war, because after the war was over, we still couldn't get anywhere. The Jews were being put in the old concentration camps by the British, yeah? So that they wouldn't go to Palestine and anger the Muslim states, who after all provided oil. So Yossi Harel, a Zionist fighter who managed to smuggle some 20,000 Holocaust survivors through the British blockade, packed only a few things for his missions. A little something to eat. After all, I'm sure his mom told him. The Hebrew Bible, the poems of Chana Senesh and Natan Alterman, and a copy of Musa Dagh. I should mention who Chana Senesh was. Chana Senesh was a young Hungarian Jewish girl who made Aliyah while her parents remained in Budapest. She was one of a number of teenagers who volunteered through the British Army to be parachuted into Yugoslavia and make their way into Hungary to warn the Jews in Hungary in 1944 of the impending deportation. The mission was a complete failure. She was captured and tortured to death, as were all the others. The Jews were deported on schedule. The train tracks to Auschwitz were crucial in this for Adolf Eichmann's plan. You know, each minute was accounted for. And it was also in 1944, specifically 1944, that both the Americans and the British not only refused to bomb those tracks, which they could easily have done, they had aerial pictures and everything else, but they threatened one guy I knew, an Air Force colonel in the US Air Force, that he would be court-martialed if he volunteered again to do it. The idea was that the Jews were not supposed to survive the war, because with too many of them alive, there would be problems for the UK and also for the US. Meanwhile, there is no mention, and I'm coming to the end, there is no mention of Werfel or of his book in the National Museum Memorial of the Holocaust at Jerusalem, Yad Vashem. Nothing. Yad Vashem is a monument to which every foreign dignitary visiting Israel is taken as a matter of routine. It was established in 1953, and it was completely renovated and re-inaugurated in 2005. In that year, the Minister of Justice of Turkey, Cemil Çiçek, attended the ceremony, and 2 months later he attacked a conference being held at Boğaziçi, that's the old Bosphorus University, in Istanbul, on what were called the Ottoman Armenians, as a stab in the back to the Turkish nation. The very idea that one should hold a conference, said Çiçek, was a stab in the back for the Turkish nation for memorializing that unmentionable people. And he lamented his inability to bring a criminal prosecution against Boğaziçi University. Yeah? So he is the person who had been at the rededication of Yad Vashem to represent the conscience of the world, yes? There's no justification either for the museum's silence about this. What we know is that Musa Dagh was a template, a warning for resistance. Everyone involved in the resistance knew it. Everyone in Europe had read it. Everyone in America knew it. Yeah? There's no justification for this silence. The exigencies of realpolitik, yeah, of making decisions based upon what is politically profitable, have affected the scholarly mission of Yad Vashem, an institution I've often worked with and talked with about this. And there's more. One of my students, who is now professor of Armenian at Fresno, he's an Italian-American, he married an Armenian girl, Melanie Sakeon, and when they lived in Jerusalem, she restored books for Yad Vashem. She restored all of the editions that Hitler had burnt. And so they're all there, including the 40 Days of Musa Dagh, the first edition, which she lovingly restored. There it is. It's mentioned in a list, but there's absolutely nothing else there about it. When I asked Yehuda Bauer at Yad Vashem, let's have a conference on the Armenian genocide. Let's talk about how it served as a precedent, as a warning, how Musa Dagh was known, how there was no one who didn't know. He said, well, it's outside the purposes of the museum, as though the purpose of history could be determined in a linear way, as though we're speaking not about the complex of historical events and the web of correspondences and contacts in human affairs, but about some kind of single line of Heilsgeschichte. So,
the Holy Spirit.
in his book, The Wicked Son, a Jeremiad against Jewish self-hatred and assimilation of anti-Israel tropes, the playwright David Mamet refers often to the Armenians and to the Armenian genocide. He quotes the famous defiant affirmation of William Saroyan, which in its original form reads this way, because he thinks it's something Jews too should take to heart. I should like to see any power in the world destroy this race, this small tribe of unimportant people, whose history is ended, whose wars have all been fought and lost, whose structures have crumbled, whose literature is unread, whose music is unheard, whose prayers are no longer uttered. Go ahead, destroy this race. Let's say it's again 1915. There's war in the world. Destroy Armenia. See if you can do it. Send them from their homes into the desert. Let them have neither bread nor water. Burn their houses and their churches. See if they will not live again. See if they'll not laugh again. See if the race will not live again when two of them meet in a beer parlor 20 years after and laugh and speak in their tongue. Go ahead. This is the actual quotation, not the sanitized one printed on posters. Go ahead. See if you can do anything about it. See if you can stop them from mocking the big ideas of the world. You sons of bitches. A couple of Armenians talking in the world. Go ahead. Try to destroy them. The Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben Gurion, made more or less the same point in fewer words, not quite as eloquently. And he said this, "Atidenu eno talui bama yomru hagoyim, ela bama ya'asu haYehudim." Our future doesn't depend on what the goyim say. Goyim is our word for odars. But on what the Jews will do. On what you do. Mamet condemns those who scorn the victims of the Holocaust as sheep. This keeps coming up, this passivity, this image of powerlessness, of the lack of agency. The same image of sheep had disturbed Armenian activists in 1915, and at the beginning of the Reverend Andreasyan's book on the Musa Dagh uprising is a poem. I'd like to read it in Armenian and English. It's not in the English edition of Andreasyan's book. Azadutyan astuzoin. Ոչ խարիբ ես ալմորտվիլ մի դարտեր, իրավ հայնալ թե ազատ ես ծեղծեր, թե մեզ ապրիլ չես կամենար մարդ կորեն, արյուծի բես կետ թող մերնիլ կամ կտներեն։ Ստրուկի բես թուլ մի դար, որ վադորեն մեր բան անգամ կազանապար գործատրեն, ալ գպավեն մահու խշտուշ կործիկներ զոր տարերով հայուն վրայն փորձեր։ Թեև մանիս մեզի համարալ շատ էր, երբ ոչ մեկ կետ այնքան արյուն գխոսեր, որքան արաքս, եպրա, թիգրիս ու ջիհան ուրան պատված կույս դիակներ պահվեցան, բայց թե չկա ազատ ապրիլ մեզ համար, այսքան ազատ ցեղերու մեջ անհամար, կետ մեր մահը ազատ ըլա և արդար մարդու պես դեր, մեզ մերնիլ dur kachapar. To the God of freedom, Lord, let us not be slaughtered like sheep. Truly, if you've created Armenians also free, if you do not will that we live as men, at least grant that we die as lions. Do not allow that they, like beasts, make even our death a slave's end. Base. There are already enough lethal weapons that they've tried on Armenians over the ages. Still, death for us were already too much when no river so brims with spilled blood as the Araxes, Euphrates, Jahan, and Tigris, whose deeps keep the dishonored corpses of virgins. But if for us a free life is not meant to be, amongst the numberless races free, let our death be free and just then, and grant that we die, O Lord, bravely, as men. So we've seen that people with different responses to catastrophe read different sorts of books. People who did nothing read escapist literature. Musa Dagh was a factor that motivated Jews to fight back against the Germans and their many allies, and strengthened the resolve of those already prepared to do so. The Armenians themselves were also inspired in similar ways by reading Rafi's novels Jalaluddin and Khenta to fight early battles of liberation. So it may be said of some books that not only are they not incinerated, but their pages are themselves a kind of fire that ignites people, inspires them to action, and to armed resistance, which I think is necessary. Often they fight in vain, and one speaks thus of the effect of reading on life. One cannot help but think of Cervantes' hero, who read far too many books about knights, and then went tilting after windmills. But quixotic quests often leave in their wake true victories, without which the world would be a place with even less freedom or hope than it now has. Both the sword and the pen have a place, and one cannot recall too often the warning that all that is required for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I'd like to offer this paper in memory and honor of an old friend who died long ago. My grandmother, Bronya, was born in the village of Volkoturebska near Rozvadov in Galicia in 1900, emigrated at the age of 6 with her family to New York, embraced with joy the new world, and went from the slums to become a high school history teacher. When the Second World War came, she saw from afar the entire world that she and her ancestors had known reduced to nothingness. But in the 30s, our family had supported the beleaguered Spanish Republic, and now in the 30s, and now in the 40s, she patiently knitted woolen caps for Red Army soldiers. Years passed, and her grandson became a teacher, facing new challenges. She was aware she was dying, and in our last conversation, shortly before she passed away in 1981, My grandmother, with her sharp gray eyes, the smile that creased her face, the modulated voice that passed effortlessly from the English of Shelley and the Koine Greek of the Sermon on the Mount to Mamalash and to Yiddish, the mother tongue, left me with this advice that I try to pass on to my own pupils, whom I love even as she and other teachers loved me and taught me, as I now take my leave of you. Darling, cultivate your own garden. But every now and then, go outside and throw a brick. Amen.
It seems to me that we have a very few minutes before we are required to evacuate this room. Not even that many more minutes until it becomes April. But nonetheless, there may be a couple of questions that we can squeeze in before we break up. If you can make them fast and pointed. Or not.
Quick comment?
But you have to wait for the microphone.
I'll make it quick. I just want to thank Dikran for speaking about Van. My grandfather fought in the Battle of Van. He was part of the resistance of Van, the successful resistance. Thank you.
Okay, we're all tired. That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay.